Configuring Single Area OSPF Network Part 2. In Part 1, we have enabled branches to communicate with other branches through the HQ router. So an employee in Dammam can contact an employee in Jeddah. We did this by running the OSPF protocol in each branch gateway and the HQ router. In this part, we will enable branches to access the internet. We will not add a direct internet connection to each branch. The internet traffic of the branches will have to go to the gateway. The gateway will send it to the HQ. The HQ will send it to the firewall. The traffic will be matched against the firewall policies and then to the internet. So let's verify that part 1 configurations are working. So we'll enable the HQ router. Enable. And then first we will check the OSPF relationship. Yes, the OSPF relationship is formed. Next, show IP route. Okay, so the HQ router knows the route to branches. Let's try to ping PC1. So that means we can ping a device in branch Dammam. Next, let's go to PC1 itself, which is in Dammam, and enable PC3 in Jeddah. We'll try to ping each other. Go to the terminal. Ifconfig is 1.1. Ifconfig is 3.1. Okay, so let's go here. Ping 172.16.1.1. Okay, so that means we can receive replies. If we ping a server that resides on the outside internet, we are not receiving any replies. Why? That's because 8.8 is not on the same subnet as PC3, so it sends it to its default gateway. And if you open the default gateway, use R3, enable, and then show IP route. You can see that it does not know the IP address 8.8.8. How do we solve this? Do we manually configure 8.8 on the IP route? We can set a gateway manually, but then we'll have to do it on the default gateway of every branch. Here in this example we only have 3 branches, but a bigger company can have multiple branches. So we will do this through OSPF, which is already running. We'll go to the HQ router, configure terminal, access the OSPF configurations, and then we'll run the command default information originate always. What this command does, it tells every router that participates in an OSPF relationship, set me as your default gateway. So if you go back to R3, run the same command, you can see now the gateway is not set. Now it's set. Why? Because we run this command on OSPF. Will it work now on PC3? Let's try. If we again ping, it still doesn't work. R3 knows that it should send any traffic that doesn't know to the HQ router. The HQ router itself, let me show you IP route, does not know 8.8.8. So we will configure a gateway manually. Configure terminal, IP route, this matches all. Send it to 192.168.5.254, which is the firewall IP address. Now let's do this again. PC3. Now the data reaches the RHQ and sends it to port 2 of the firewall. but we still did not configure the firewall, so let's configure it. Enable the firewall. Login, default username admin, click enter, type a password, then configure system interface. We'll start by configuring port 2 so we can access it through the WebGUI, because we will configure on the WebGUI. But first we'll have to configure port 1 as the management interface. We'll have to configure port 1 to access the WebGUI. Config system interface, edit port 1, and then set mode to static. We will set our own IP address, we don't want DHCP. Then for the IP address 192.168.100.24, this is the IP address we'll use to access the WebGUI. Be careful, it must be on the same subnet as your modem, and then allow HTTP because you'll use it to access, and then save your configurations. Let me go to the web, open a new tab, type the IP address you configured, and then login. Begin. For the host name it will be firewall1. Click OK. This is the FortiGate dashboard. First we'll match the time zone. Go to system, settings, and then go to time zone, match it to, yeah, that's where I am, and then click apply. So my changes have been saved. Now we'll configure a basic internet access policy, but first we'll start with the interfaces. Go to port 1. The name of the port will be outside. Click OK. Saved. Let me go to topology. You can see port 1 is connected to the internet. That's why I set it as outside. For port 2, it will be inside. The IP address will be, as you can see, match our topology. This is the subnet. Let me make it bigger. And this is the IP address. 192.168.5.54/24. This is the IP address we configured as a default gateway for the HQ router. Let's test the connectivity, but first we'll have to allow ping access on port 2. So go back to port 2, double click, allow ping access, and click OK to save. Next, go to the HQ router, and let's do a test ping. Ping 192.168.5.24. You can see we are receiving replies. So now let's configure the actual internet policy. Go to the DNS, specify. For primary, it will be my modem. Secondary, do Google DNS public. Google public DNS server. Click apply. Okay, next we'll configure our static routes. Create new. Match all internet destination, and then the gateway will be, we will send the internet traffic to our modem. So it will go from the HQ router to the firewall, matching the policies, and then to our modem. And then this will be the outside port, correct? Go OK. And then go under policy and objects, go to addresses, create a new address. Here we will create an address object. It will be our branches. Let me add LAN branches. Here for the IP address, we will not create an individual address for each branch. We'll summarize their routes. 172.1.0.0/16. This summarizes all the branches subnets. So this matches all branches. Interface, it faces the port 2. Click OK. Next we'll configure another address. It will be LAN. This time it will be LAN HQ. The IP address it will match will be 192.168.5.0/24. You can check my topology. The interface it will be port 2. Click OK. You can see both of them are created here. Next, we will create an address group to merge them all. So we will call the address group behind firewall. So these were individual address objects, but here we will group them all. So we'll just refer this group, and then it will refer to all the members. LAN, HQ, and branches, close, then OK. You can see the group is created. Next, we'll create the actual policy. Go to IP version 4 policy, create new. The name will be Internet Access. The internet traffic will come from port 2 and it will leave to port 1. The source, we can either specify the addresses, but we will select the group we created earlier. You see, it contains the LAN, the branches, and the HQ, both of them. Destination will be all. For the services, I will allow HTTP and HTTPS to request web pages, DNS to resolve domain names, and ping just for testing. These three only allow internet browsing. It won't allow anything else. So then go to all sessions, change logs when session starts. You don't have to change these two settings. Click OK. And now if we go back to PC3, ping, it won't work. Why? Because here the data is leaving to R3. The default gateway is configured via OSPF, and since the HQ is configured manually sends to the firewall. The firewall matches the policy and then sends to the modem, which sends to the internet. But when the traffic comes back, the firewall does not know the route back to the branch in Jeddah, so it just drops it. You can see that because if you go to the HQ router and try to ping 8.8.8, you are receiving replies. Why? Because the HQ router is on the same subnet as the firewall, so it just sends out of port 2 because it's on the same subnet as 0/3 of the HQ. But for branch Jeddah, it doesn't know that in order to call branch Jeddah, just send it to the HQ, so we'll configure that. Go back to the dashboard, under network, static routes, create new. Here we can't refer to the addresses we created earlier, so we have to type it manually. 172.16.0.0. Again, summarize, because if we enter only 0.3, then it will only know the branch of Jeddah, but Medina and Dammam won't have internet connectivity. So we summarize all the branches in one address. If you want to reach any branch, just go to the HQ router. It will deal with the routing. The IP address of the HQ router is 0.253. The interface will be port 2. Click OK. Now this tells it if there's any branch data, just send it to the HQ router. Then the HQ router will deal also with sending that data back to the PC. So now if we go back, ping 8.8, we can now receive data. Let me explain it again. The traffic is not on the same subnet. The traffic is not on the same subnet as PC3. So since the default gateway, we have run the default originate command on RHQ. So all routers sharing OSPF relationship will set the gateway as HQ router. The traffic reaches HQ router. We configured the default gateway for HQ to be the firewall. The firewall matches the policy and then sends to the modem. The modem goes to the internet, comes back. Here we configured a static route. Any traffic that comes from these branches that match 172.16, just send it to the HQ. The HQ receives back the data, Since we configured OSPF on these routers, the default gateway is an HQ router. It knows the route to branch Jeddah, so it sends back the data to R3. R3 sends the data to PC3. We can also try browsing the internet normally. Google.com. You can see we can browse the internet. You can type anything. It's Fortinet. Access the website. Basic internet browsing. We only allowed HTTPS, HTTP, and DNS. Now, before finishing the lab, don't forget to remove these services. So back to the dashboard, policy and objects, IP version 4 policy, internet access. Remove the ping. Close. Okay. And then go to network, interfaces, go to port 2, remove the ping, access, and then click OK. And you can also test from PC 2. Go to control panel, network. The IP address will be 172.16.2.1. Click apply. And just like this, you can browse the internet. Let's first verify the ifconfig. I received the IP address successfully. Now you can search google.com. Okay, so this is our lab for today. Thank you for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.